Hey guys, before I get into this video, just want you to know that this was actually scheduled to go out on Thursday and it is currently Saturday. And since we've had a rebuttal kind of from the league. So though this video doesn't cover exactly what the league said, so just know that this was recorded before the league responded with their own proposal of a salary cap and the revenue sharing. I will be doing a breakdown of that very soon over on Mayday, and we're going to be covering this thing the whole time. So just so you know, I don't mention that because I recorded the rest of this video beforehand. We are exactly where I thought we would probably be, so there's a lot to talk about here, but I'll do that at a later date. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video, and thank you for watching.
It's finally happening. The Major League Players Association just made its first proposal to Major League Baseball today in collective bargaining. First reported by ESPN's Jeff Passan on X, the Everything app, players have submitted a proposal highlighted by 9 main changes. I'll go through each of them point by point, give any insight onto why these points are chosen, the implications if agreed upon, and how I think the owners will inevitably respond. Plot twist, the rebuttal is unlikely to be very kind. But first, do not forget to like and subscribe because I like it when you're here and I don't want you to miss any future videos. Also, note merch. Go get yours now at MaydayWear.shop. That is www.MaydayWear.shop. Now, before we get into the points themselves, we need to keep in mind where we are at right now and what both sides want. Okay, 1, the owners really want a salary cap and the players really do not. Why? Well, the owners want to prevent rich teams from having an advantage and they want a good excuse to increase their franchise values because they feel like their local revenue from TV deals and such is decreasing, and the only real way to increase their assets is to increase the value. On the other hand, the players feel a cap opens a Pandora's box, and when it comes to salary suppression, that is not what we want. It's one of those give an inch, they're probably going to take a mile situations. Now, both sides agree that there is a resource inequality problem, namely the Dodgers have way more money and they can buy all the players, but they fundamentally disagree on how it should be fixed. The owners believe that an uncapped system benefits the big markets too much, and small markets simply cannot compete. The players believe that spending money to improve is the way that it should be, and teams that don't should be incentivized more strongly to do so. Baseball is interesting in that spending more money and winning does actually directly correlate with making more money, but losing doesn't meaningfully mean you make less money. It's important to remember. So keep that filed away for about the next year while these negotiations continue on. And then number 3, no one wants to miss any games in 2027. So that's another thing that they agree on. You got it? We good on all that? So let's get into the points and see where we stand. So point number 1. A competitive integrity tax for any team that does not spend $150 million on salary. So this invariably functions as a soft floor, the same way that the current luxury system is supposed to be a soft cap. Now, it doesn't really work like that because the penalties for the cap are just kind of being blown through and no one seems to worry about them too much if they're willing to go past the threshold. So it's not really a deterrent at that point. It's just a way for money to be funneled elsewhere, which we're going to get into in a minute. The stance of the owners and the commissioner has always been that teams that don't spend don't do so because they don't have the resources, not because they don't want to. While the players, on the other hand, say the opposite. So if they were to take this point and go with it, they would be admitting that the player side is actually what's happening. So my assumption is, and my prediction is, they will absolutely reject this wholesale, at least right out of the gate. Point number 2, players would like to increase the minimum salary from $780,000 to $1.5 million, which is almost double. That would be by far the biggest in terms of lump sum and percentage increase from one CBA to the next, as last time they had about a 50% increase from, I believe it was 520 to 780. So the players' main initiative for the last few negotiations has been to get players paid earlier in their careers. That's been a big point of contention. The fact that teams can have control over players for 6 years and not have to pay them free agency money has been a benefit to the owners, but then after the 6 years, the players can get free agency and then make lots of money. That's why the market is the way it is. Now, raising the minimum is always an easy way to get guys paid a little bit younger, but it doesn't really make a huge difference in terms of their entire career. So if you get guys that are playing 10 years, for example, me, like having an increase in the minimum wage wouldn't benefit me a ton. But then again, the guys who are only up for a little bit of time, that's meaningful money, even though maybe it doesn't change their situation in retirement if they're not able to get a lot of big league time, but it does help. So it's always a positive thing. Even if it's nominal long-term for careers, it is beneficial in the short term, and that's always a good thing. The real value actually that these things have is being able to claim that it's a win and using it as a vehicle. As they, stall in other areas, they start to talk about how they're moving in the minimum wage area. And it's a very straightforward situation. It's easy to predict. It's easy to factor into your expenses, and it's usually in the big scope of things, not a huge addition to your overall payroll numbers. So they will likely meet somewhere around $1 million here, and then both will claim that is a win. Point number 3, increase the base luxury tax or CBT threshold from $244 million to $300 million. So again, that's the soft cap. The players would like to increase that soft cap, not to give more teams really that big of an opportunity to spend a bunch more money at the top end, but it's more so removing it as an excuse not to pass that threshold. Chicago Cubs, Ricketts family. I should really go to a doctor for that. So the verdict on this one, the owners won't budge until if or when it's clear that the salary cap isn't going to happen. So this will just be wholesale ignored until it is necessary to use as a bargaining chip once they realize that the season is going to be missing games without moving on from the salary cap. So don't expect any movement here. This is going to be a scoff and roll your eyes situation. If you watch any of my content by now, it won't be surprising when I tell you that I love tracking everything, including my health. Hell, I even made a video a couple years ago on this very channel that showed off everything I tracked during my final year while I was playing. That's why I'm excited to partner with today's sponsor, Hume. The Hume Pod is the world's first portable body analyzer, which uses 8 frequency sensors to deliver price, weight, and full body composition to advance your weight and health management journey. The advanced sensors embedded in the handle are able to scan your torso, arms, and legs in an accuracy of 98% compared to medical grade health scans. It has a free app where you can track more than 40 different health metrics. I love those sweet health metrics. It also gives a weekly health score and so many more features. Now that being in shape isn't my job anymore, I need to find other ways to motivate myself to keep moving. By setting a simple goal, like lowering my body fat percentage, Hume helps me stay accountable. And also, it looks cool. And I like things that look cool. Use code TrevorMay for 20% off at checkout, or use the link in the description to take up to 50% total. It's also HSA, FSA eligible, so if you have any HSA or FSA, they can get it covered for free by their health insurance. Thank you to Hume for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the CBA. Point number 4, changes to the revenue sharing system that would distribute more money from local television revenue, but decrease the amount distributed from in-stadium revenue to incentivize teams that win and draw larger crowds. Okay, this one's a doozy. We're gonna have to use a diagram, so stick with me here. I'm gonna do it as quickly as possible. Really quick, here's how revenue sharing works right this moment. There are 3 main sources of revenue. There's national revenue, which is like national TV deals, merchandising, licensing, MLB TV, postseason rights, sponsors, everything where the entire league is involved. Then there is net local revenue. That means they can remove their stadium expenses from that total and then report that number. That includes like ticket sales, local sponsors, local television rights. And then for the third thing, there is luxury tax payments. That is all of the money that is paid by the teams that are over the luxury tax to be added to a pool that is then distributed in a bunch of different ways, which we're gonna cover in just a minute. So the national revenue collected is split into a base and supplemental share. It's just 2 different little pools of money. The base is just split 30 ways evenly to all the teams, whatever that is, 3.2 3.3 repeating, of course, percentages, I think. And then the supplemental is like a weighted distribution towards the lower revenue receiving teams. Hi, Pirates. Then the local revenue pool is another base pool that is just made up of 48% of each team's local revenues individually. So whatever your local revenue is, you report 48% of that is going to go into the pool. You keep 52%. So that means that teams with way bigger markets contribute way more to that pool. Then the luxury tax money goes into a different pool and then is split in half. One half goes to player retirements. The other goes to the rev sharing pays, those same teams that are receiving the higher weighted money from the national revenue. I know, it's just so clear and easy to follow. So the proposal made here, if you can even remember what I said, is meant to split up the local base pool. So that's the only one we're going to focus on right now. So they want to split the actual television money away from like the ticket sales and the concessions and all that kind of stuff and make those two different types of revenue. And then make it so the television money is being pushed, more of that anyway, the higher percentage is being pushed into the pool. So the pool becomes mostly that money, and then the teams get to keep way more of the money on the ground, the money they get from their actual operations, things that they can control day to day to increase the revenues overall. That makes a lot of sense. It's 100% of the work that you do. You should be able to benefit from that. And if you get creative and clever about it, you should have the unlimited ability to raise that number to the moon if you can. So this is meant to do two things, this proposal that is, by changing that. It will, one, help the small market teams with TV rights issues be covered by the teams that are doing well on that front. Teams like the Mets, the Yankees, the Cubs, like teams that own their own TV networks can help more or less subsidize the teams that are really struggling with the TV deals and not getting as much money, which is a big problem and which is the biggest reason that those teams want their franchise values to increase. So that would solve a problem for the owners. But then there's the second benefit it has, and it incentivizes getting people in the stadium to attach the actual product that the team has on the field to how much money they make, which also makes a lot of sense. So if you're really good at business and you're really good at putting a good product in front of people who want it, then you should be paid accordingly. So this is a big step in the direction of helping solve the league's RSN problem, and it also provides an opportunity for teams to use their business savvy to improve their profit margins. It's a win for the players in that respect, and it's a win for the teams that are struggling with the RSNs. But the verdict, this is important to watch. This one's really important. This one is actually the one I'm gonna be watching the closest because I think it says the most about where the owners' mindsets will be. How the owners respond will be very telling, as the proposal actually addresses concern for both sides, a big one for both sides. Now, if they admit that they're willing to do something like this, it would invariably just throw the salary cap out of the window probably. It just won't look like as good of an option to the public. It'll look like as an alternative to the salary cap, and that is something they just simply can't have until they try their darndest to get the salary cap in. So I think they will also reject this completely. They might not even acknowledge that the offer was made, because in the current system, the small market teams make profit no matter what they do. Like them giving 48% of their total money sounds like something they should be against, but they're for it because all the small markets are giving less than they are receiving. So all they have to do is participate, and they're gonna make more money than they would have made had they had to try to make the product good on the field. Do you understand? Like that, it's set up so they don't actually have to try that hard to like be good at business. What they've tried to make it is so that no one can actually fail if you're part of the group. That's not really a free market anymore at that point, but I guess it's kind of silly to even think that this was anywhere close to a free market, because it's not. So for those that actually like own the businesses, not really being able to fail is quite the perk, and they won't like to give that up. So there's probably no way that that'll happen. Point 5, free agency for players who are 30 years old at 5 or more years of service. So it's normally 6 years, but if you hit 30 before you get 6 years, say you get called up at 28, say you're Tyler Rogers and you're 27, 28 when you get called up, you don't have to wait till you're 35 to be a free agent. You'll become a free agent as soon as you get to 5 years if you're over 30. So you'll go to free agency a year earlier. This actually isn't a huge change, but it is a change to team control, which will only be discussed if the salary cap is on the table. That's like, it's just one of those things that it is a non-negotiable unless something major happens on the other side. The verdict though, the only way something like this is included is the cap floor is implemented in some form. And it's a one-sided benefit straight towards the players. So without like a give or take here, we're not gonna really know. So until the salary cap is gone, this will be in play, but I wouldn't be surprised one bit if it's completely ignored. Point 6, teams that receive revenue sharing forfeit portions of their checks depending on payroll levels. Recipients that win also receive more money in that revenue sharing. Now, we don't have exact numbers here. The owners would have to spend a certain amount of money on payroll in order to be included in the supplemental and discretionary recipients list. That's the two piles of money that are weighted towards lower revenue gaining teams. Again, it's that I put in some money and I receive more than I put in, that situation. In order to participate in that, we want to set a floor along with a soft cap that you have to spend in order to participate in that system. But if you can imagine, that's not going to be super popular because you have to spend some of that money that you would have been gaining from the system. So that system isn't as fun to be in anymore. And so therefore it's kind of pointless if you're making a floor that they have to hit. But the real kicker is, how much would that share then increase if you win? I like it because there's an incentive and a disincentive. Like, it's a good way to say, hey, don't do this, but do this and you can get more. But it really depends on those numbers. So the verdict is, like, there's no way to tell unless the numbers are put out there too. So say your revenue sharing could increase 50%. So if you made 50 million, it could go to 75 million or whatever it is. I mean, I'm sure small markets would love that, but unfortunately for them, that number would be subsidized by the big market teams who are also voting on the owner's side. So the big market teams won't like that because it would just be money going from them to pay for these bigger, to pay other teams for winning. And that's just not something that they're gonna like. So they're gonna have to find a different way to do that. So there's no way it's gonna happen. And the same thing with like the bottom of the payroll. If we're set at 80 million, it wouldn't change anything because most teams are over 80 million, but if it was set at 150, like the de facto soft cap was, now we're talking, but again, maybe that affects too many teams and no one will vote for it. So like, again, this sounds like something that is not gonna be really addressed at all in the next rebuttal. It's gonna be, there's gonna be, you know, of the 9 points, probably 6 of these are just gonna be ignored and not even responded to, because if they do, then they open the door to a certain type of system. They want different systems, and that is important to understand here. Point number 7, pre-arb bonus pool increases from 50 million to 180 million. So, really quickly, pre-arb pool is a bunch of bonus money that goes to guys in 0 to 3 years of service time for like winning awards or being the best in the league or whatever, okay? This is one of the mechanics put into place last negotiation in order to get young guys paid earlier. Now, if you remember, and this is why I was laughing, last negotiation, the players proposed a $250 million pool. The owners then rebutted with 25 million, 10%. So where did it end up? 50. It ended up at 50 million. So, for context, the players moved 200 million and the owners moved 25 million. And we lost 3 weeks of spring training because of that. So imagine what's gonna happen now. The verdict? The players asking for 180 million will likely get like 65. It'll be a 90% move one way, but there will be movement because, again, just like minimum wage, this is one of those numbers that as long as it moves a little bit, both sides can sell it to the public and it feels like progress is being made. Now, they'll both spin it a little bit harder depending on which side you're on, but the owners will be like, look, we gave $10 million, that's us giving them something, even though what they gave was much smaller than what they wanted, what the other side wanted. But that is an argument to be had, but that is what is very likely to happen. That's where I find them landing because of what happened last time. And point number 8, $3 million as the minimum tender in arbitration. No, not chicken tenders, contract tenders, like offering a contract. This means in arbitration, whatever the minimum offer that you can give a person entering arbitration should be $3 million, which is much different than the current kind of rules. The rules now say it's got to be at least MLB minimum salary, so $780,000 right now. It has to be at least 80% of the player's previous year's salary and at least 70% of the player's salary from 2 seasons back. So, like, if a guy is like in a third year of ARB, but he like bounced around a lot in those last 2. So the first year he got like 1.5 million. like he can't get less than 1.1 million at any point. So like he can't go to a team and have them give him in a tender contract, not just a sign to a minor league contract and then escalate or whatever. There's ways to get around this. But if they tender them an arbitration contract, that minimum has to be 1.1 now. They're just going to make that 3 million as a base, which is a huge increase. Now the verdict is, because of this huge increase, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it did move, but just like a little bit. Like maybe they just increase the minimum, or if the minimum gets increased, they'll just increase whatever that with the minimum. Let's say 1.5 is the minimum they can do to, and that might be enough, and the owners will say that's a win. So again, it's going to move a tiny bit. And if it moves a tiny bit, then both sides can claim that they negotiated in good faith about it. And the final point, point 9, arbitration Super 2s jumped from 22% of the total players to 44%, which is double. Right now, the top 22% of service time players between 2 and 3 years, meaning like the top about fifth of players in service time of the guys between 2 and 3, will get 1 extra year of arbitration. They'll enter arbitration early. So of the 6 years of control, it'll be 2 years of the rookie contract and then 4 years of arbitration where you can negotiate your contract, so that the scale gets going pretty fast there. That could be meaningful amounts of money versus 3 years and 3 years. So they basically just want to double the number of players that are in that system to once again pay players earlier in their careers. This could potentially increase payroll for teams significantly, especially teams that have a lot of younger players. And it's designed to make teams that benefit the most from getting production from young players, like the Tampa Bay Rays and honestly Pittsburgh Pirates and teams that like get a lot of value and then get rid of them as soon as they get expensive. They'll have to actually pay those guys a little bit more while they're there, though it wouldn't be a huge amount more. It would be a good amount. So I wouldn't be surprised if this number also changes. But again, it won't go to 44. It'll probably go to like 30. They'll probably add like 3%, 4%. But any additional number or amount of guys, I think, is a positive thing. So I'm not going to discount getting any movement in these. And I think that the PA knows that. Honestly, most of the time when these things shake out, that is how they end up. It's just a lot of these little things that kind of create a meaningful situation. I will say, though, this will not be addressed until it can be offered back as a concession for something else. So like this is something that they don't have to give right away. This is something that they can use as a sweetener later. So it'll probably just be filed away and then addressed later when there's something big they want, and they just need to add a cherry on top of that sundae in order to push it to the finish line. That is how this is gonna operate. And the PA knows this too. So like that's why a couple of these things are thrown out, so that there are points of contact that are obvious, that are not huge deals for the owners to change and feel like big deals to the PA. They want to keep those as sweeteners and opportunities to keep negotiations going, because the more you stall out, the harder it is to get anything done, and then the fans don't get very happy, which then hurts everyone's bottom line. So just pay attention to how these things are being talked about as this process continues. So overall, the proposal is more aggressive than I anticipated this early, but I think this is a great thing for the negotiations in general. They're pulling a Band-Aid off, then they're just getting right into it. And this is the best case scenario if we want to avoid missing games in 2027, which everyone does, as they should. I love it. I love they just threw it out there. Here's the things, here's just rebut, say what you want, and then make the ownership group come back and say, okay, we want these things, and then go from there. And I think that's just a good, as transparent as it can be kind of situation. And I think that it's a win-win. So I like that they went out there, they did it, and they did it now. As always, I want to know what you think. Are any of these proposals too aggressive? Is it not aggressive enough? What do you think the owners will respond with? What do you think that they're going to ask for the first time out? Let me know down in the comments. And with that, like and subscribe. Drink some high-quality H2O. Watch your baseball. And I'll catch you next time for some more Trevor Throws Cheese. That's our next video on the Trevor May Baseball channel. Peace and love.